I never thought that a single moment could change everything, that a return could shake the certainties on which I had built my life. I can't lie to myself. My thoughts have turned into a labyrinth with no way out. I always believed I was a faithful wife, or at least I liked to think so. But lately, something inside me has been stirring, a subtle fire that has made its way without me being able to stop it. My life, perfect and stable, started to seem monotonous, empty. And to fill that void, unexpectedly, he arrived. Matthew, my cousin. A return that I didn't expect, a meeting that seemed destined to reawaken sensations that I thought were buried. It was a late summer day when Matteo, after years spent abroad, returned for a short visit to the city. His presence has rekindled enthusiasm in our families, bringing back childhood memories, running in the fields, endless laughter, the carefreeness of a distant time. I never thought that that innocent bond could turn into something so dangerous. But Matteo was no longer the boy I remembered. He had grown up, and it showed. The more intense gaze, the deep voice, an air of self-confidence that he had lacked before, and I, perhaps in search of new emotions, began to look for it with my eyes on every occasion, to catch his movements, to listen to the sound of his laughter with a different awareness. Every meeting, every glance, touched chords that I never thought I would touch. Yet I couldn't escape that subtle tension, that silent call that insinuated itself more and more under the skin. The more time passed, the more ignoring my desire became impossible. I felt attracted to him in a way that defied all logic, all morality. During a family dinner, our eyes met more times than usual. It was as if he too had sensed the tension hanging between us. Every time his eyes fell on me, my heart raced, as if it wanted to escape the control of my mind. After dinner, while everyone retired to their rooms, I stayed awake. Sleep didn't want to come. I felt an invisible force pushing me towards him, a forbidden desire that I could no longer ignore. On tiptoe, I approached his room. The door was ajar, and in the dim light I saw Matteo sleeping soundly. His breathing was slow, his face serene. I stood in the doorway, my heart pounding in my chest, torn between reason and desire, between what I had been and what I was about to become. But let's take a step back. My name is Anna. I'm 35 years old, and my life, on the surface, is what many would define as perfect. Married for 10 years to Marco, a reliable, caring, always present man. We have a welcoming home, a stable job, and friends with whom we can share light and carefree evenings. Yet, behind this impeccable image lies a reality that suffocates me. I married young, believing that marriage was the key to happiness. For years it has been. Marco was my refuge, my balance. But as time passed, something changed. A patina of monotony has begun to veil our days, weighing down every moment together. The words were always the same, the gestures repeated to the point of boredom. The passion, once fiery, had turned to ash. I don't want to seem ungrateful. Marco is an amazing man, and I know he loves me deeply. But something inside me was screaming, asking for more, a thrill, an emotion that made me feel alive, that broke the suffocating routine. In silence, almost without realizing it, I began to desire the unpredictable, to fantasize about scenarios that went far beyond my everyday life. And when Matteo returned, when his gaze fell on me, those thoughts found a face, a name. It wasn't just physical attraction. There was a connection with Matteo that I couldn't ignore. It was as if it took me back in time, to a time when I felt free, without chains. Maybe it was precisely this lightness that I was missing, the desire to escape, even just for a moment, from the golden cage into which my life had transformed. And now I was there, in front of his door, my heart beating as if it wanted to explode. My mind begged me to go back, to remain the woman I had always thought I was. But a part of me, the one I had suffocated for years, pushed me to enter, to risk everything for a moment of pure madness. Now I want to know your opinion. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where desire called into question every certainty? Write it in the comments. I remained still, my gaze fixed on him. The dim light that filtered through the window traced soft contours on his relaxed face. Every now and then he would move slightly in his sleep, a deeper breath, a slight change in position. I felt my heart speed up, fearing that he might wake up and find me there, watching him like a thief in the night. But that moment allowed me to look at him like I never had before. Matteo and I had grown up together, cousins, accomplices in childhood games, allies in the little secrets of family celebrations. As children, we chased each other in the gardens. We threw paper balls under the table during lunch. We laughed until we cried. Then our lives took different paths. Matteo had left the city, studied abroad, building an existence that seemed almost distant, unattainable. Yet, here we are, him asleep, unaware of the disturbances that were devouring me. Me, poised on a dangerous border, suspended between the need for control and the desire to abandon myself to the unknown. A silent battle that I knew I had to win, but every fiber in my body wanted to lose. I had chosen security, marriage, stability. I had never regretted it, or at least that was what I had always told myself. But now, observing him a few steps away from me, I realized how much he had changed, how Matteo was no longer the boy I remembered. There was something irresistible about him, an aura of freedom and mystery that attracted me like a magnet. It didn't have the boundaries that kept me tied to my life, and it was precisely this spark that struck me deeply. As I stared at him, another image overlapped with my thoughts. Marco, my husband, his warm hands, his safe embrace, his constant presence. He was the man with whom I had shared everything, from the most carefree days of youth to the difficult moments. Marco had loved me with an unshakable dedication, and yet, in that instant, I felt I was betraying something bigger than him, my own concept of faithfulness, of loyalty. I was suspended in an unsolvable conflict between the stability of a life built with commitment and the burning temptation of a forbidden desire. Memories began to flow like a river. The day of the marriage proposal, the tremor in his voice as he knelt, our first trip together, the laughter, the nights wrapped in whispered promises, precious memories, which should have made me give up. But something had died inside me, and the emptiness I felt terrified me more than any other thought. "What are you doing, Anna?" I asked myself, my mind desperately trying to bring me back to reality. I knew I was about to cross a line, that every step forward would make it impossible to go back. Yet I couldn't move. The tension was palpable, like a thin thread that held every breath, every heartbeat. Matteo's regular breathing brought me back to reality. I watched him once more, wondering what he would think of me if he could see inside my troubled soul. But he slept peacefully, unaware of the storm that was overwhelming me. I tried to find the strength to go back to my room, to distance myself from that temptation, but I felt trapped in a moment of suspension. My heart pounded in my chest as I stood in the doorway, undecided. I could have walked away, closed that door, and ignored the fire burning inside me. But something in me, That rebellious and curious part that I had repressed for too many years pushed me to take a step forward, just one, almost imperceptible, yet enough to make me feel the intensity of the situation. I slowly approached the bed, holding my breath. Matteo seemed different from that boy with whom I had shared my childhood. His face, illuminated by the dim light of the moon, had lost the sweetness of memories and gained more mature, more decisive features. My gaze slid down his chest, rising and falling with the slow rhythm of sleep. It seemed to me that time had stopped, that the whole world was suspended in that forbidden moment. With an unsteady breath, I bent down, and without even realizing it, I touched his hand. The contact was an explosion of sensations, a shiver down my spine that made me jump. Matteo moved slightly. His breathing changed. Slowly he opened his eyes. For a moment we remained still, in a silence full of meaning. "Anna, is that you?" he whispered, his voice hoarse and thick with sleep. A shiver ran over my skin. I nodded, unable to utter a single word. My lips trembled, my eyes locked with his. There was an understanding between us, a silent complicity that went beyond words. With a slow gesture, Matteo raised a hand and touched my face. It was a warm, intimate touch that dissolved every last shred of hesitation. I approached, letting myself be guided by a primordial impulse that I couldn't repress. Our lips touched, a light kiss, full of hesitation, of discovery. Then, as if we had both reached a point of no return, the intensity exploded. I found myself in his arms, my breath breaking as I abandoned myself to that desire we had held back for too long. Every rational thought dissolved, leaving room only for the warmth of his hands, the veracity of his kisses. At that moment, I was far from my usual life, from my reality, far from everything I knew. In that instant, the rest of the world ceased to exist. It was just me and Matteo, wrapped in a whirlwind of emotions that consumed us without leaving us any escape. I didn't think about Marco, about my marriage, about the consequences. I could only feel my heart beating wildly, the desire pulsating in every fiber of my body. I was alive, intensely, desperately alive. The hours slipped away in a fog of heightened sensations. Every look, every touch seemed to have a deeper meaning, as if our bodies spoke a secret language that no one could understand. We moved in perfect harmony, attracted to each other by a force we had never dared mention. Far away, inside me, I felt the weight of guilt, but the need to let go was stronger. For years I had ignored that void inside me, and now Matteo was filling it in a way I never imagined. When the first rays of the sun filtered through the curtains, reality began to break through the shadows of the night. Matteo looked at me in silence, and in his eyes I saw the reflection of my own conflict. We had awakened something powerful, something we couldn't pretend we hadn't felt. But we both knew it couldn't change who we were, the lives we'd built. "Anna," he whispered, his voice hoarse, with a hint of remorse. "You know this doesn't change anything, right?" I looked down, the lump in my throat growing tighter. He was right. As overwhelming as that moment was, my life was waiting for me on the other side of that door. Marco was waiting for me. Our marriage, our story. That night would remain there, confined to a secret corner of my heart, a memory engraved in my soul. "I know," I barely replied, my voice cracking with emotion. But I needed to feel alive, to let myself be overwhelmed by something that was only mine, even if for a short while. Matteo nodded slowly, his eyes filled with silent understanding. We knew that our paths would take us far away, that that night would be just an illusion of freedom, a moment stolen from time. I got out of bed with a mixture of hesitation and resignation, trying to compose myself. When I turned to him, I felt the words touch my lips before I could hold them back. Thank you. It wasn't goodbye. It wasn't a promise. It was just an acknowledgement of what we had experienced. He nodded, a faint smile that contained too many unexpressed thoughts. With an uncertain step, I headed towards the door. Every step seemed heavy, full of conflicting emotions. I knew that by crossing that threshold, I would carry with me the weight of guilt, of fear, but also the thrill of rebellion that had driven me to do so. Now I want to know your opinion. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where desire called into question every certainty? Will Anna really be able to go back to her life as if nothing had happened? Or will that secret change her relationship with Marco forever? If you want to find out what happens next, let me know in the comments. Leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this intense and forbidden story. If you want to receive new videos of the series, write, "I want the sequel" in the comments. If you like the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel to receive a preview of future publications. Thank you